see if I could get this up here. Bear with me for a moment as I set up, get myself together. Salakia, we get right into it. Shalom, Salakia. I want to light some Palo Santo before I got started with this lesson. Shalom, shalom. Welcome to another live lesson through the Spirit and Power of Yahweh Shem Yahushua. Now, before we start this lesson, I'd like to give all honor, all praise, all glory to our power, Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushua, Ba'ashem Kakadash. Double honor to the elder apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Salutations to the hopeful elect. Now, this lesson is going to be titled. Imminent. Yeah, the Lord is sharpening his sword. The imminent destruction of America. And that's what this whole war in Iran is leading up to, which it will be the destruction of America going by way of thermonuclear fire. Because right now it's a ground war, right? You have Iranian troops on boots on the ground. You're gonna have U.S. troops and Israeli troops on the ground. But now it's gonna become a nuclear war, right? Soon it's gonna become a nuclear war where they're gonna start shooting missiles at each other. So right now, it's just Israel with the U.S. and Iran, but then all of these major players like China and Russia is gonna get into the mix, right? And then it's gonna break out into a third world war, right? So I want to read this here. This is Ezekiel chapter 21, verse 10. It says, "It is sharpened to make a sore slaughter. It is furnished that it may glitter," right? So what sword glitters, right? What sword has reflects light? You see what I'm saying? Like what sword glitters and reflects light, often, right? It's not talking about a literal sword that you hold in your hand, right? This sword that is to make a sore slaughter is speaking about the thermonuclear missiles, right? The ICBMs, these nuclear warheads, okay? Because those glitter. Why? Because when you go into Joel, the second chapter, that's what I'm going to do real quick, Joel 2, it tells you that the fire is behind it, right? That's speaking about the missiles, the rocket propellers that propel these warheads in the air so that they get close enough to then be dropped at their target destination. Joel chapter 2. In verse 3, it says, "A fire devoureth before them, and behind them a flame burneth," right? Because these missiles are going to be shot off continuously. So, one missile shot, and you see that I got the picture at the bottom of the screen. Going to have one ICBM missile shot, as it flies through the air and it hit the designated target. And as you see in this illustration here, in this, you see the America being destroyed, And when it is destroyed, it won't be any monuments. You know what I'm saying? It won't be a Statue of Liberty left. It won't be any of these statues or famous monuments that we have now. It won't be any the Washington Monument or Statue of Liberty, right? It won't be none of that. No Route Mushmore, like everything, all of these monuments, right? All of these figures that America set up, that's set up throughout America, is going to be destroyed when the ICBMs hit this place, man, and render it to ash. So this for illustration purposes, but it's letting you know the doubt that this is America that you're seeing because of the Statue of Liberty, and that this is the downfall of America by the way of ICBM nuclear missiles. This is what the apostle John on the island of Patmos in Greece, this is the vision that the Lord sent him, was the vision of that lake of fire. Christians, and they don't understand prophecy because the spirit of prophecy is not with them. That go back to Revelation 21 and 19, right? The spirit of Yahushua is the spirit of prophecy. So Yahushua is not dealing with these Christians. Now, Yahushua is not dealing with majority of these people on the planet Earth. As it is written in Romans 9 and 6, not all Israel is of Israel. The Lord is only dealing with the true believers, right? The hopeful elect, the ones that know his name and believe on him. Okay. He's not dealing with the rest of the nation of Israel on this side, you see. And unfortunately, but it's prophecy. For prophecy's sake, 2/3 of our people are gonna have to go, they're gonna have to be in this thermonuclear fire, right? They're gonna be eviscerated by these missiles. Okay. That go back to Zechariah 13, 8 and 9. They're gonna be eviscerated by thermonuclear missiles. Okay. So this illustration at the bottom of the picture is America literally being on fire. And this is what the Apostle John seen on the island of Patmos. He's seen, every inch of America engulfed in fire, right? And it looked like, because he was looking down. He was at a high vantage point because he was looking from inside the chariots, right? What the world called UFOs, the scriptures call them the chariots of Israel, right? The chariots of the Lord. So he was inside the chariot looking down, right? Right? Looking down as the chariot, inside the chariot, as the chariot was in the air, he's looking down in the vision and he's seeing America, right? Babylon the Great, right? The daughter, mystery Babylon, the great whore. Scriptures give America many names. Babylon the Great, the whore, right? The mother of all harlots. It's seen this place fully engulfed in fire, man. That's why it looked like one lake of fire would look like, and that the whole entire country, which it will be, is going to be engulfed in fire, because it tells you in Isaiah 13 and 19 that the Lord is going to destroy America, which in that verse in Isaiah the 13th chapter in the 19th verse, it calls America the beauty of the Chaldees' excellency, right? This place, America, right? America is going to receive the same judgment that ancient Sodom and the 5 neighboring cities of Gomorrah, Sodom and Gomorrah and the 5 neighboring cities received, which was what? They was destroyed by fire. So this country is going to be destroyed by fire, right? And this is what the vision that the Apostle John seen on the island of Patmos. Now, this is Joel chapter 3 and verse 2. It says, a fire devoureth before them, and behind them a flame burneth. So as the missiles are touching down, and they're touching down on this place, they're going to touch down on other countries. Now, it's not going to, when the missiles do launch, when the ICBM missiles do launch, and, they're sent, right? There's not going to be any kill switch, okay? We're just making that for the record. It won't be any kill switch. It's not like in the Hollywood movies where you could press a button and there's a kill switch, and then, the missiles is just going to explode in the air, or it's going to go into the ocean or the desert. You know what I'm saying? That's not going to happen with these missiles, right? Once they set in the air, they're set, okay? And they're going to travel to their target. That's why ICBMs stand for intercontinental ballistic missiles. So they're going to go from country to country, right? Hitting the targets that are designated, because all these world leaders, once these major players like Russia, China, right, and other countries get into this war, then it's going to become a nuclear war. Then you're going to see, then, they're going to go from ground troops, shooting at each other, launching mortars and tanks and guns to, shooting nuclear missiles. Hold on, give me a second. I got it. So that's what's gonna happen. Okay. But we also know at the same time that while the missiles are being launched, right, as the missiles are being launched, Yahweh Shah is gonna make his grand appearance and crack those clouds, and then order the angels to basically gather the elect. I tell you that in Matthew 24:31. That's scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. All right, so it's going to be a simultaneous action. So as the missiles are being launched, the Lord's going to make his scene, and he's gonna gather his elect. But just that's why the scripture said they'd be saved in the twinkling of an eye, because he's gonna make sure that that the elect, right, that 144,000, which includes the 144,000 and 1/3. The Lord is gonna make sure that the elect are not hit by these missiles, because he promised that if they believe and endure it, that they will not see the second death. So this is not for the believers. This is for the wicked. This is for the unbelievers. This judgment is for the 2/3, which is the so-called Black, Latino, Native Americans, right? The 2/3 of our people, and for the heathens. All right, it's not for the elect, the ones that believe and stood true with Yahweh Shah. All right, so this is not nothing to fear, but this is just something to understand. Okay, it says a fire would devour before them, right? So that's that fire that's already being kindled. Why? Because as the chariots. Salakia, give me a second. Salakia, sorry about that. Brother was calling me, but like I was saying, let's go back into it. Joel chapter 2. In verse 3, it says, a fire devoureth before them and behind them. Right, we're speaking about how the fire is already kindled. Right, Yahweh Shah spoke about this. He said, would it have it if the fire was already kindled? Because when Yahweh Shah cracked those clouds and he come with the army of chariots, they're going to be shooting concentrated laser beams at America. All right, they're going to be shooting there. The fire is also going to be coming out of the chariot. So they're going to be shooting concentrated laser beams at this place, on top of the ICBM nuclear warheads dropping on this place. Okay. Just read that real quick. If the fire is already kindled. Already kindled. Luke 12:49, right? Luke chapter 12 and verse 49, it says, I am come to send fire on the earth, and what will I if it be already kindled? So that fire is speaking about is the concentrated laser beam. So what Yahweh Shah is talking about here is that, all right, you're going to have ICBM, you're going to have the fire, right? The heat and the fire from the ICB, from the explosions, right? The aftermath, right? that thermonuclear fire from the ICBM nuclear missiles, from the warheads, right? And then you're gonna also have, at the same time as the nukes are dropping, and you know everything is basically engulfed in fire by those nuclear warheads regarding America, and in the countries that will be hit by nukes, because not every country on the planet is going to get hit by nukes. There are some countries that are going to be totally that the nukes are going to pass by, that's not going to be affected at all by these nukes. So the countries that do get hit with a nuke, the fire is it's already going to be there, because everything after the nuke hit, everything else is going to be engulfed in fire and destroyed, right? So then on top of that, Yahweh Shah is going to come in regarding America, and when he comes in with those, so what the world calls UFOs, but it's chariots, right? The chariots of the Lord, the scriptures call them. When he comes in with the chariots of the Lord, they're going to be shooting concentrated laser beams at this place as well. So that's the fire if it be already kindled, okay? I mean that Yahweh Shah is going to shoot down concentrated laser beams at this damn place, right, from the chariots, all right? Him along with the holy angels. Go back to Joel chapter 2 verse 3. It says, a fire devoured before them, and behind them a flame burneth. The land is as the Garden of Eden. Before them and behind them a desolate wilderness. Right, so that fire behind them, before them, let's talk about when the missiles hit, right? Because they're going to be coming simultaneously, right? It's going to be multiple nuclear warheads coming at America all at once, right, from different nations. So right before they hit, is gonna that Eden's talking, the word Eden means paradise, so it's gonna be, unaffected. You know what I'm saying? It won't be any devastation. Everything will be as normal, right? But as soon as the missiles hit, it's gonna create a complete desolation. It's gonna destroy any target that the warheads are sent to. Whatever country, whatever city that the warheads are sent to is gonna destroy that city. Right, it's going to destroy that town. Okay, so right while they in the air, everything is going to be fine. It's not until they touch down is when the destruction is going to come. All right, when the missiles touch down, and they will touch down, because it's prophesied that America is going to be destroyed by way of ICBM nuclear missiles. Okay, it says before them and behind them a desolate wilderness, yea, and nothing shall escape them. Right, because once you have what's called a blast radius. So I don't know the blast radius of these ICBM missiles, but who's ever within that blast radius is going to be completely incinerated, because like it says in Isaiah 24 chapter, the earth rocked to and fro like a drunkard. So the missiles, once they touch down, the nukes, once they touch down on America and the country that's going to get hit with them, it's going to make a giant earthquake, man. And then from the earthquake, what is the aftermath, right? That intense heat, that thermonuclear heat, that's gonna destroy everything within that blast radius. You see? So whoever within the blast radius is not gonna make it, man. All right. You will not escape. And mind you, it's gonna be multiple nuclear warheads. It won't be like 2, it won't be 5, it won't be 10. It's gonna be multiple, like an innumerable number, a great number that's coming to this place. Because remember, the Lord is gonna render America into ash, because that's what happened with Sodom and Gomorrah. If you go back to Genesis 19 chapter, just to give you a picture and a better understanding of this judgment, you go back to Sodom and Gomorrah in Genesis 19, you read about that account of what happened in Sodom and Gomorrah and the 5 neighboring cities. They were all destroyed by fire. Nothing was left. Lord sent fire from heaven and it was nothing left. Like the devastation was so bad that, Lot, the daughters, I'm extrapolating from the scriptures, I'm extrapolating from that account, right? It don't say that, but when you read it, you can tell that they was in a state of fear, that Lot daughters was in a state of fear, and that they they made that they really believed that, the world was, set on fire. You could tell, like I said, the scriptures don't say that. When you go into Genesis, the 19th chapter, it doesn't say that, but you can tell from reading it, right? You can extrapolate, you can take that from the scripture, like, okay, they really thought the world, like the Lord just like wiped out, you know what I'm saying, the earth with fire at that time, right? Just to give you, and that kind of, when you go into Genesis 19th chapter, it show you how great that destruction was, to the point where they had those, where they was moving in that fashion. They was in they had a lot daughters had great fear and desperation, because that's what made it out of Sodom and Gomorrah, right? Was Lot and his daughters. Okay. So none of them was gonna break their rank. Once the missiles are launched and they touch, they're gonna destroy everything in sight. Now, going back to Genesis 19th chapter, when you're gonna read into it, that's why with Lot daughters, they thought that the world, like I said, was set on fire. That's why they got their father drunk, which is the truth. They got their father drunk, Lot, and they slept with their father while he was drunk, as a need for survival, because the devastation, that's how you know the devastation was so great, because they felt like the Lord wiped out the earth. Because why else would you, try to preserve his bloodline by doing that? Like, that wasn't, now the scriptures don't promote incest, you know what I'm saying? It's quite the opposite. The scriptures speak against incest and sleeping with family members. However, they did that out of a desperate attempt to preserve the bloodline, because they believe that's how great, that's just that act alone of them getting their father drunk and impregnating themselves with him, showed you how great the destruction was of Sodom and Gomorrah and the five cities, because they felt like the world was literally set on fire, and they felt like, you know what I'm saying, not felt, but you could tell from that act of them trying to them impregnating themselves by sleeping with their father, was they did that out of a desperate attempt. It wasn't no love, it wasn't no passion out of that. They did that out of, and they got him drunk because they knew he would be against it, because he's a righteous man. You know what I'm saying? That's why when you go into 2 Peter 2:8, it says he was vexed with the filthy conversation of the wicked. Lot, that righteous man Lot. See, the scriptures call him a righteous man, because he didn't agree with the sodomy and all the sexual immorality that he was seeing people participate in Sodom and Gomorrah. He wasn't with that in the city of Sodom. You know what I'm saying? When he was living, he wasn't condoning that. He wasn't a part of that. And you could tell, when even reading Genesis the 19th chapter, because he spoke up against the mob that tried to. And scriptures say that's a fearful thing to be, face a mob, right? I forgot what scripture in the Apocrypha, but that's one of the, one of what a man's biggest fears is to face a mob. And he faced a mob of raging sodomites, you know what I'm saying, that wanted to sleep with those two angels that disguised themselves as men, you know what I'm saying. And he told that mob, like, hey, look, don't do this. That's just wicked. That's off. Sleep with my daughters instead. Don't do that. So just to come to show you that, right? Lot is a righteous man. And, he was vexed, like the scripture say, with the filthy conversations of the wicked. So I say all that to say that his daughters doing what they did was a desperate attempt to preserve the bloodline, because that's how great the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah was. So how much more Babylon the Great, that the Lord marked with the same judgment, they're gonna receive the same judgment as Sodom and Gomorrah, man. Remember, the scriptures say that this place they're gonna be the smoke of her burning will come up continually. Roughly paraphrasing, right? The smoke of her burning. See, Revelation 18:18, it says, and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, what city is like unto this great city? right? And that's talking about the merchants and the other nations. You know, they're gonna actually see the destruction of Babylon the Great, aka America. They're gonna witness it, man. Let me see. Was I think smoking for burning um come up continually? Yeah, so that was Revelation 18:18. Yeah, that was Revelation. We read it 18:18. So we was right, you know. I forgot. I think it was Memorial. Memorial. KJV. Yep. Slovakia. But yeah, America's destruction is gonna serve as a memorial to the other nations, right? As a reminder to the other nations, like, hey, don't fuck with us. You know, this will be the fate of all those who come against the nation of Israel, man. This is what happened when you completely turn over the wicked. This is what happened when you're wicked. All right. So you know that great destruction of Babylon the Great, aka America, is gonna serve as a memorial. You know, and other nations are gonna see it. Okay. Let's see. I had other scriptures. We go to Second Peter 3:10. Matter of fact, I'm gonna stay in Joel. Say Joel. Salakia, not Joel. Joel. Right, verse 4, it says, the appearance of them is as the appearance of horses, and the horsemen so shall they run. Right. So once the missiles is launched, they're gonna go full speed, man. They're gonna go top speed. There is no gears, there's no shift. They're just gonna go top speed, and they're gonna go at their max speed in order to reach their target. You know, I forgot the max speed for ICBM. Yeah. It says intercontinental ballistic missile (ICBMs) generally reach maximum speed of Mach 20 to Mach 25, so roughly 15,000 to over 18,000 miles per hour, or 24,000 to 30,000. Right, and the numbers is changing because you know these ICBMs. The Lord is still, as you read in Isaiah 54:16, the Lord is still causing the smith to burn the coals. In other words, He got the nuclear scientists, right, and physicists still working on these missiles, right? Right. They you got the different, like America, Israel, um, North Korea, Iran. You know, they have ICBMs, and they still improving on these ICBMs, and they still working on these ICBMs. So, you know, this is the estimate, but it could be even faster. You know, way faster by the time, right, that they launch, man. You know, they even go faster than what these numbers is projecting here on on that they showing us here, right? Way faster, because the Lord have it to where they're constantly improving and working on these missiles, man. Works, making them more destructive, making them more faster and destructive. Okay. It says during the mid-course phase of flight in space, these speeds allow them to strike targets up to 13,000 kilometers away in approximately 30 minutes. So it takes 30 minutes from one missile to launch from one country to the next. 30 minutes. And mind you, the scriptures say that America, Babylon the Great will be destroyed in 1 hour. So with that being said, you know, it's not going to take long for these missiles, and it's going to get even faster, because again, like I said, Isaiah 54:16, they're improving and working on these. On the Lord got these scientists still working on these missiles, so it could be even shorter, a shorter time than 30 minutes, right? So this place don't have long, man. And that show you the power of Yahweh Shem Shai, because what took 250 years to build and maintain, the Lord is going to destroy in literally 1 hour. 1 hour. Wow. Going back to Joel 2:5, it says, like the noise of chariots on tops of mountains shall they leap, like the noise of a flame of fire that devoured the stubble, as a strong people set in battle array. Right, because you're gonna hear the rocket propellers literally, you're gonna hear the sound of the rockets, right? Those are the sounds of the rockets, right? Moving through the Shemayim as it launches and then moves through the Shemayim. You're gonna hear it. These won't be no silent missiles, man. Okay? You're gonna hear these rockets moving through the air, shooting down, you know what I'm saying? And making devastating explosion, but you're gonna hear them. All right. Verse 6, it says, before their face the people shall be much pain. All faces shall gather blackness. Right? And that's in the much pain. Why? Because once the missiles, because you gotta understand, the rocket at the bottom that's attached to the missile is gonna shoot the missile up in the air. It's gonna get it in the air. Then as the missile, right, is moving through the air, okay, it's gonna break apart near the target, and then once it hits the designated target, that's when the missile gonna break apart, and what's gonna be remain is the warhead at the top of the missile. That's what's gonna do the damage, not the missile itself. The missile job is to get the warhead to the target. You see? So we go back to what we looking here, like this missile here, right? You see the rocket at the bottom of it, right? This missile job is to get the warhead at the top to the designated target. So as it's flying through the air, right, the heat and the gravity and the resistance, well, the heat and the resistance is going to break this missile up, and all that's going to remain is the warhead, right? And it's the warhead at the top of the missile that's going to do all the damage. Okay, that's the tip of the missile, the warhead, right? That top part that look like a pencil, you know, that's the warhead. That's what's gonna do the damage. Okay, not the actual missile itself. You know, the missile, the other parts of the missile, like the rocket at the bottom and the rest of the missile, right? The bottom part of the missile, its job is to get the missile, the warhead at the top to the target. Okay, and that's what it's gonna do. All right, let me see. It said much, again, Joel 2:6. Before their faces, the people shall be much pain. All faces shall gather blackness. You know, this is a good illustration here. I could show you another illustration. Let me see. I got this is that blackness. You see? Right? because you're gonna see these people literally engulfed in fire. That's why they in much pain, because they literally it's gonna be like the scene in Terminator 2 where the missile, the nuke hit LA, and then everything was engulfed by the heat that was generated from the warhead, and everything was engulfed in fire, you know. And just like it says, tell you in Zechariah the 14th chapter, the flesh of these people is gonna melt, like their eyes, their tongue shall melt in their mouths, man. That's great pain. Okay, that's great suffering. That's going to come. Hey, this is just the truth, bro. Well, yeah, that's great pain and suffering which is to come. It says, before their face, the people shall be much pain. All faces shall gather blackness, bro. They're gonna literally be burnt to ashes, bro. This is the second death that the scriptures speak about, and who the elect won't see, who the elect won't they won't touch Lakia, the second death. Okay, they won't touch the second death. You see, Zephaniah 14. In verse 12, it says, let me see if I can highlight this part. I'm gonna go to Zephaniah 14. In verse Zephaniah 14, so like it. No, Zechariah 14, 12. Now Malachi, see, that's just saying. See how saying do. Let's see. Yep. Matter of fact, I'll bring this out instead. Second Esdras. No, Zechariah, yeah, Zechariah 14, 12. Okay. Trying to get KJV here. Here it is. It says here, and this shall be the plague wherewith the Lord Yahweh Shema Shah will smite all the people that have fought against Jerusalem. All right. So again, not all of Israel is of Israel. And it lets you know in 2nd Esdras 15 and 4 that the unfaithful shall die in their unfaithfulness. So this plague that the Lord is sending, this judgment, is not just for